All right, shalom, y'all. Welcome to Hebraic Awakening. We about to freestyle this. I'm not about to do no editing. We just go study organically. And we're studying prayer and intercession. Is there a difference? Can we say that there is a difference? All right. Is there levels to prayer? So we're going to midrash the scriptures. We're just going to read scriptures, read definitions, talk about it, and then, come up with the answer. And I'm going to move into the prophecy versus predicting, right? But I really want people to understand that you have to understand everything that we have learned about the Bible from a Hebraic perspective. And if you don't take the time to sit down and to study this, as best as you can, or get with someone that you trust to teach you how to study it for yourself, you are going to still carry the same kind of, for those of us that were in Christianity or in Islam, Buddhist, whatever religion that you come from, you're still going to carry that sense of what the word means. And so we always want to come from a Hebraic perspective. So we want to come in with clean eyes and we want to dissect the scripture. And then the things that we have learned on our path, we can put those things back right into our studies that line up with Torah, that line up with the Hebraic understanding of certain words and events. All right. So, and I really want to get into uh, like, what does end times mean from a Hebraic standpoint? Okay, not what does end times mean because we sat in church and we heard how the church did end times. And so now we are trying to put a little bitty spin on it with a little bit of Hebrew that we know. No, we need to sit down and dissect it. And it takes time. And that's why it's taking me time to even do this prayer intercession that I was supposed to do months last year and the prophecy versus predicting because it takes time. You got to sit, you got to chew, you got to digest, and then spit it back up and rechew it and get like you really have to do that. And sometimes it takes a while because you're looking at events playing out and the Most High is teaching you through world events and so on. So for me, it takes a minute before I just up and put something out because I'm steady learning. All right, Palau. I think most of us have heard of this word. If you're new to the faith, we use the ancient Paleo Hebrew, and you can find that at ancienthebrew.org. I don't know if you can see, uh, what's up here, as far as the websites and stuff that I have. So, htmlbible.com is another resource that we will be using. This right here. I don't know if you can see that on this little tiny screen. I know it looks tiny um, on the recording, but htmlbible.com, and I probably will put those links in the chat so people that are new can study. This resource is free. You could download it to your computer and everything. I know everybody got their own way of studying, but for new people who looking for free resources, those two are really, really good. So Palau. So using the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Palau, he, pay, a picture of a mouth, to speak. To speak what? Languages, right? Lamed, the picture of a shepherd's staff, signifying authority, like a shepherd that has authority over his flock. And he's teaching his flock, how to stay alive by listening to the words, the language that's coming out of his mouth. So when we put these words together, we get the thought or the definition to speak to authority for judgment. All right, to speak to authority for judgment. That is the definition of prayer from a Hebraic standpoint. This is not just to pray, I want a house, I want a husband, I want a car, I want a new job. I'm just telling you what prayer is. I am not telling you that you cannot ask your Heavenly Father for those things. That's not what I said. But Hebraically, when we're speaking about prayer, and we're looking at the ancient Paleo Hebrew, prayer is about bringing judgment to a situation, right? And so when you're talking to your Heavenly Father, you need to speak Hebraically from the standpoint of Torah and understanding what He has said to you and to your people concerning, you know, what you should have. Now, I know they lying. I'm trying to teach in the band from the school. Well, that must be somebody outside. Hold on. Look, I'm not even editing. Nope. So where was we? To speak to authority for judgment. They better not play that music again. Whew. Let's look at Isaiah 45 and 14. All right. So let's go. Isaiah 45. And, this just puts insight into, how we are to go before the Most High. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not going to tell people you must lay prostrate before. No. However, when you look at our people and other nations as well and how they reverence the Elohim that they would worship, and people would be prostrate before this great entity, right? So thus says Yahweh, the labor of Egypt and merchandise of Ethiopia and of the Sabians, men of stature, shall come over unto you, and they shall be yours. They shall come after you in chains, they shall come over, and they shall fall down unto you, and they shall make what? Palah, to intercede, to pray, to entreat unto you, saying, surely Elohim is in you, and there is none else. There is no Elohim. So they shall fall down to be prostrate. See that word? Shakah, to be prostrate, to fall down before you and make prayer for righteous judgment. Right? So you can read about that, the rest of it in Isaiah chapter 45. All right? Tefillah. I didn't write that word down, but I think that's another word that we all know. Tefillah is another form of prayer. It also means to plead and to supplicate. So you're pleading and you're supplicating. You're falling down prostrate, showing that you are lower and you're humbling yourself before this great Elohim so that he can render judgment on your behalf or whoever you're praying for behalf. Okay. Um, let's see. Genesis 20 and 7. Let's go there. Man, this pollen is kicking my tail. My goodness. I'm thinking I'm getting over it. But every time you go outside, it's pollen everywhere. Woo! Genesis 20 and 7. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for you, and you shall live. And if you restore her not, know that you shall surely die, you and all that are yours. So Yahweh directs Pharaoh to listen to Abram as he prays for Pharaoh. And through that prayer, Pharaoh will be restored. Okay? Let's look at that word pray. Palah, to judge. Right? So Moshe is to give a righteous judgment for Pharaoh. Right? All right. Genesis 18:32 through 33. Let's look at that one. Because we're midrash, we want to see if there's a difference between prayer and intercession. So, Palah, what did I say? Genesis 18:32 through 33. And he said, "Oh, let not Yahweh be angry, and I will speak. Yet but this once. Pre-adventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And Yahweh went his way as soon as he had left, communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place." Let's see what this communing means. Dabar, words, talking, speaking. All right, let's see what this speak. Dabar. Okay, so they're speaking and he is interceding, really. Now, we don't see the word Palal, but we see the form of Palal used in this action between Abraham and the Most High. He is showing you how to actually pray and plead. He's pleading with the Most High um, to bring righteous judgment, to save at least 10 in this instance. All right. Psalms 106 and 30. Phineas. 106. Phineas stands up and pleads for justice. And the Psalms is reminding us. Let's see. 30. Then stood up Phineas and executed judgment, and so the plague was stayed. Palah. See that word? To judge, to entreat, to intercede. All right. So Phineas stood up and executed Palah, prayer, so that judgment would come. And then the plague was what? Stayed. It was held back to maintain, to rule, to assemble, right? So it restrained itself based upon the judgment. Halal. All right, and I just did a little short coming up pretty soon on a vow, because a vow, ooh, a form of prayer, right? A declaration of prayer, like a declaration pleading, but it's just more firm, right? And this is covenant talk. That's why Messiah said, please don't make no vow. And in our culture, it is really frowned upon to make a vow like that, right? So Ecclesiastic 4. Well, let's turn there because I want to make sure I got the right scripture. But a vow is nothing to play with. That's covenant language. That is covenant language, and that's why you just don't. And a lot of us is in trouble today for making a vow that we done forgot about. And what's so bad is that the vow, the punishment, the judgment, sometimes won't show up in your lifetime. It'll show up down the line. And that is why you just do not. Woo wee. I know we all have done that. We all have done that, knowingly or unknowingly, ignorant or whatever. See, I knew I had wrote that down wrong. I don't know why I knew I had wrote that down wrong. But anyway, um, is it 5? Yeah, 5. So you're gonna read this. Keep thy foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of food, because this is what prayer is about. Because sometimes in our prayer, in our declarations, we are making vows that the Most High didn't ask us to make, and we are solidifying it through prayer and intercession sometimes. And when you go to the house of Elohim, all people who call themselves prayer warriors, intercessors, whatever, okay, have to be ready to hear, then to give a sacrifice of fools. This is not about you intentional. This is about you being ignorant as well. For they consider not that they do evil. Right. So when you're praying, and you know we all have said it, Lord, if you get me out of this, I promise I'll give my life over to you, knowing good well. And then when you hear people that have made that statement, I always listen to what come after next. Then I didn't do it right away. It took me years to really complete that vow because I didn't really mean it right then. And then you hear of all of the stuff they still had to go through after they made the vow. And I was like, I wonder why. Because you made that vow and you were supposed to repent and turn and you didn't. Or you made the vow like some of us do, and put time frames on when we're going to do something. And the Most High did not ask you to do that. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart, your decisions, your mind, where your decisions, your thoughts, and your feelings and your intellect reside. Do not let your decisions be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven and you are on the earth. Therefore, let your words be few. Ma'at, a little or few. I mean, come on. So before you come to the house of Yah, be ready to hear. This is why I say I have to do this before the prophecy versus prediction. Because somewhere along the line, a whole lot of prophets is talking. But I know from a Hebraic standpoint, prophets are supposed to be listening. And in order to know the voice of Yah, prophets have to be heavy on the studying, heavy on the Torah, heavy on understanding what are judgments, what are statutes, what are commandments. Heavy on that. And they spend most of their time studying and listening and learning the voice of Yah before they come before the people to prophesy. This goes hand in hand with prayer as well. So making a vow is crazy. Verse 3, for a dream comes through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by the multitude of words. Ouch. When you vow a vow unto Elohim, defer not to pay it, for he have no pleasure in fools. Pay that which you have vowed. Better is it that you should not vow than you shall vow and not pay. Suffer not your mouth to cause your flesh to sin. Because this is what you're doing. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error, right? Because oh, I made a mistake. Wherefore should Elohim be angry at your voice and destroy the work of your hands? Because see, back then a vow was like this ritual. And the Most High did not ask you, he didn't ask you. He gave you the Torah, set of instructions. Yet let your yes be yes and your no be no. But no. We think we being so sanctified that we gonna make this vow. And I be like, ooh, when I hear people do it, I be like, mm. I know that we really probably do mean it from a good place. But he said it's foolish. You don't care. You don't even consider that you do evil. Because now from your lips you gave a sacrifice of a fool. Let's just click on that. Fat. To be stupid or silly. I did not say that. That's what this, y'all, I didn't say it. That's what this said. It said to be stupid or silly. Facts. I'm going to leave it alone. Let me look at the root word. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone. That's what it said. So, making a vow. or even a declaration, because I'm good for making declarations. And that's why I sit and carefully line my declarations up with what the set of instructions already said. So I'm doing what the set of instructions say. But just making a vow like I vow not to have sex for 7 years. You know, you making that vow. You standing and you going through your whole snotting and crying because your man, just cheated on you and, and it was terrible. And now you making a vow. I'm making a vow that I would never drink again. Okay. You know what I'm saying? That sounds good, right? It's a good thing not to, if you was drinking a lot and maybe had an alcohol problem, that sounds good. However, the Torah already gives you specific instructions on what you should and should not do and how you should handle yourself. So you get to know that and you go through the process of of understanding the instructions, because that's a whole process. Like my husband says, people want to skip the process and just get straight to the thing. Oh, I'm not gonna read about the instructions that teach me how to be celibate and why I should be celibate. I'm gonna skip that whole process to get there, and I'm just gonna click up, make the vow, and you don't skip the whole process. You don't skip the ups and downs and the uh-ohs and all of that to learn, what entices you, what doesn't, how not to put yourself in certain situations where you would, have sex outside of marriage. You know, you ain't considered a process. You just click, click. And I'm like, yeah. So a vow, a vow, a vow. Don't make it. No, don't make the vow. Okay, let me move on. Let me move on. Ooh, we a fool. Okay, that's what it means. And a judge, when we go to a court of law, don't the judge sit down and listen to your case? He don't just start. He interrupting you and he making a verdict and he bringing a judgment right before he ain't even listen to both sides of the party. You know how long it takes for the judge to listen to the case before he makes a righteous decision? He doing a whole lot of what? Listening before he what? Speaks. That's all we saying. So we're standing in that position because we are being what? The mediator, so to speak. Just got to be silent. Got to be quiet. You got to sit. You got to listen. Go through the process of knowing what his voice sounds like. And the only way you're going to know it, because I hear that a lot. Well, I don't know what the voice of the Most High sound like because you're not studying his word. You're not studying your ancestors and all of their mistakes that they went through and looking at what was happening when they were praying, when they were doing what they shouldn't have, and when they were doing what they should have, and how the Most High answered them. You're not studying. So that anybody can come on these internet streets and tell you whatever. You fall for it because you don't know how to study and listen for the voice of Yah. You're too busy talking and you're too busy listening to other people talk. All right. There we go. Miracles. So, all of us who love to pray and intercede, we love to talk about miracles. How come we don't see miracles? How come we can't see miracles, signs, and wonders? You do see miracles, signs, and wonders. Again, you you looking for a Pharaoh type of miracle where, the 10 plagues came and miracles are judgments that the Most High wants to bring about. He uses the elements of the earth to bypass us in our reality, right? And to create situations that will bring righteousness. It will bring righteousness to the situation. And I love Yeshua. He bypassed all of the reality of how bread should be multiplied and baked right? And knead it, and you got to get the flour, you got to get the leaven. He bypassed that whole thing and created a miracle because there was a righteous judgment to feed the people. They needed to eat. They were hungry. So he he bypassed it with Tor. That's what Tor do. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. And bam. So a banner or a flag that we use, like we see the flag and the banners, it's the same word for a miracle. So I believe I did a video on that. You know, where a banner, you hold up a banner and a flag, what are you saying to the enemy? Right? What are you saying? And it's a justice, judgment, judicial word when we talk about a banner or a flag. It's the same word used for a miracle. Miracles are judgments that invade our little reality, and it brings righteousness to our situations. And we say, oh, the Most High gave us a miracle. He gave you a righteous judgment that bypassed some things that was taking too long, or, it would have taken years for that to happen, and he let it happen like that. You know, just different set of circumstances that can bring about a miracle, a righteous judgment. So miracles is, I know we kind of like um, fantasize or romanticize these miracles, that we hear and see throughout our walk in Christianity or whatever. But this is what it really is. It's about bringing a righteous judgment. All right, so let's look at First Chronicles 16 and 12, just to remind us what we should be looking for in a miracle. First Chronicles 16. Make sure that's right. Remember his marvelous works that he have done, his wonders, his judgments of his mouth. You see how this all goes hand in hand? His wonders and the judgments of his mouth. Let's click on wonders. Mofeth, from Yafa, in the sense of conspicuousness, a miracle. Boop, 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 boop. Right? A miracle, a sign, and a wonder. And it's coupled with what? The mishpat, from Shaphat, a verdict. This is judicial talk, a formal decree, right? So you see how that miracle, that wonder, that sign is coupled with judgments. All right, let's go to another word that's associated with prayer and Palah. Uh, shul. Shul, the root word, to draw out. All right, and then we have Shael, to draw out from the unknown. So you see the shin meaning to what? True to chew, to destroy, to chew up something, to draw out the flavor, or to destroy with your mouth. But to chew, when you're chewing and you're chewing on something good, you're drawing out what the flavors in your mouth, the nutrients, right? The authority teaches you and gives you an answer to a problem that you did not know. This is connected to prayer. Shul, right? Or Shael, to draw out. Let's look at Joshua 9 and 14. Let's see, what did I say? 14. And the men took of their victuals and asked not the counsel at the mouth of Yahweh. Ooh. pay, right? They didn't ask. And the men took of their victuals. Let's see what that word is. Game, lunch, and and they didn't ask. They didn't what? Shael. A primitive root to inquire by implication, to request by extension, to demand, to ask counsel, to beg, to borrow, to consult, to desire. They ain't ask none of it. They request, they ain't pray, they ain't do nothing. Let's see what happened. And Joshua made peace with them and made a league with them to let them live. And the princes of the congregation swear unto them. And it came to pass at the end of 3 days after they had made a league with them that they heard that they were their neighbors and that they dwelt among them. And the children of Israel journeyed and came into their cities on the 3rd day. All right. Da 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 da. 18. And the children of Israel smote them not, because of the princes of the congregation had sworn unto them by Yahweh Elohim of Israel. And all the congregation murmured against the princes. Let's see, verse 22. And Joshua called for them and spake unto them, saying, Wherefore have ye beguiled us, saying, We are very far from you when ye dwell among us? Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall none of you be freed from being bondmen and hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my Elohim. And they answered Joshua and said, Because it was certainly told your servants how that Yahweh your Elohim commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were sore afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this thing. Verse 27. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation, for the altar of Yahweh, even unto this day, in the place which he hath chose. 23. Read it again. Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall none of you be freed from being bondmen and hewers of wood and drawers of water. Until this day, verse 27 says. So, not asking counsel, not drawing out to ask to get that judgment, to get that counsel, to understand, to draw out from the unknown, from the authority that would have gave you the right thing to do. They didn't do it. Oh, sure. Like, so this is the edge of the garment worn by priests, right? So we see the tallit, and we see the zeets, right? The hairs on the corners, right? Hair represent your mind, your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, right? You see the function to draw out inside of this word. You see it, right? You see the shul. You see the function to draw out in the root of this word. And then when you add a tav, you see that they drew out of the covenant, because the tav is the picture of a cross sticks, a mark, a sign, and it's always alluding to the covenant, right? The tav is always covenant talk. So when the woman grabbed the tzitzits, what did she do? She drew out of the covenant righteous judgment for her issue of blood disorder. She drew out. And Messiah said, wait, who did that? It's not about somebody touching him. This is somebody going to the authority figure to draw out what they could not get an answer from the doctors. And she drew it out from the covenant, and she got her righteous judgment. Sure, right? Just fascinating when we study. Shalom. You see the root to draw out inside of shalom. So we see when we break it down in the paleo, we see that shalom is just not a greeting. For me, it's like when I say shalom and you say shalom back, we are telling each other that you're gonna draw out from the authority the plans on how to protect your peace. Cause you're gonna draw out and you're gonna be able to destroy the chaos that's coming, right? To take your peace away. So you're gonna draw out. So every day when we say shalom, that's why I stopped saying shalom to so many people. They don't have a clue of what shalom really means. And when I say shalom, I'm like, yes, I have the ability to draw out from the creator the authority how to keep chaos from ruining my peace of mind. He's giving me that authority. I got to go out to the one that have the ultimate authority and draw out this plan of action for my work week, for my week ahead, because chaos is coming to interrupt my peace. And I need that authority to give me a plan of action to tell me how to keep my peace. Shlomo, Solomon, y'all see the root word inside of Solomon? And we know that Solomon had what? A vision. And the Most High was talking to him. And he asked him. And in that vision, he drew out the right answer. He asked for wisdom. So when you study, prayer and how to go before the authority to draw out the right answer, right? You can't go wrong if you stop and you listening and you discerning the voice of Yah, you studying Torah, you studying the commands. You're gonna pray effectively and you're gonna hit the mark. Speaking of that, let's get into intercession. So that was prayer. That was Palah. Now we're going to go into a different kind of level of prayer. We know it's the same, but it's a little different. Pagah. So now we're changing that root system, and we have another word, Pagah. Right. So we see that pay. Now we see the gimel, and we see the hay. All right. So now we got the gimel, the foot to walk right on the path, and we got hay to behold, to look up. What is he? What are you looking up at? You're supposed to be looking up at Yahweh, to behold, to reveal, revelation, right? So this mouth is speaking and teaching your foot how to walk to receive this level of revelation. I'm just reading it. I'm just putting a Paleo Hebrew. That's all I'm doing. To impinge, right? So this means to impinge. This is making contact now. That's why you got that foot in there. First you had the lamet, the staff. Now you got the foot. And you are going to impinge either by accident or by violence. You're going to advance. You're going to strike. You're going to make contact. Right? And the use of this word, how it functions, is usually found in numbers. And we're talking about the function and not the actual word, because numbers is all about setting boundaries. Because I was stuck for a minute. It's like, what? And then it was like, ding, ding, ding. I had to sit and I had to look and discern at the word to see what is the Most High saying. So boundaries are limits, right, that are set to mark territories in time, space, land, etc. So Isaiah 59 tells us that there was not one soul who could impinge the Shamayim or the heavens to bring about judgment concerning salvation. So what did Yahweh do? He pagah. Woo, but that was like, ouch. He himself had to make the righteous decision to uphold judgment, and he ain't let up since. There was no intercessor. There was no one to come before him to not just to pray, but to come to him and strike and make contact with him. Like you passing the limits of your boundaries that you have. And through intercession, you pass that boundary and you break forth into the territory because you make a contact now because you like it's life or death sometimes when you are interceding. It's life or death. Territories have been assigned to us. We look at our ancestors when the Most High set boundaries and marked where the 12 brothers would have their own land. And guess what? He said, now I have given you your territory. I've given you the boundaries, the limits, the markers, but it's up to you to what? Press into them. It's up to you to press into the boundary and the marker and the territory. And they had to what? War. They couldn't just go into the boundary, into the territory. They had to war. They had to take by violence. They had to advance, to strike, to make contact. And with the authority of the Most High, they did that. And they drew out the plans of the Most High to set up in their land how the Most High wanted them to run their land. What? Through the commands of the Most High. And what did I give y'all the right verse? I think I gave y'all the wrong verse with that. It was Ezekiel 22 and 31. What happens when there is no intercessors? Let's turn there. What did I say? I forgot what I. Let me go back. I forgot what scripture I gave. Oh, Isaiah 59. Let's turn there to make sure that was right. Or somebody be like, that ain't even it. If it's not it, y'all know how to find it. Let's see. I just want to make sure. Isaiah 59. Cause I be doing so much studying. Sometimes I be writing faster than my brain is thinking. Let's see. But your iniquities have separated between you and your Elohim, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. 4. None calleth for justice. Here we go. And none pleaded for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and brought forth iniquity or lawlessness. 9. And 9. Therefore is judgment far from us. Neither do justice overtake us. We wait for light, but behold obscurity or darkness or ignorance. You don't have a plan for brightness, but we walk in darkness. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. This is what happens when there are no intercessors. Okay, I can't even finish read. Listen. Verse 16. And he saw that there was no man, and he wondered. Let me click on that wondered. He was stunned. He was devastated. He was stupefied, amazed, astonished that there were no intercessors. Therefore, his own arm brought salvation unto him, and his righteousness, it sustained it. I'm just saying. And now that we are scattered in captivity, do we have intercessors? And I'm not saying that we don't. I'm just making us think about the level of intercessory prayer that we really need to have to make that strike, to go past the limits and to go up to the shaman and even make contact with him. Pagah, intercession, you see? So this word is not Pala, but it is paga, to reach, to meet, to fall upon. But this is a different level. What else did I say? Ezekiel 22 and 31. I was just making sure I gave y'all the right scriptures. That's all. Oh, y'all, I be praying like an old woman. Even if I'm watching TV. I was watching this show, Adolescence. I'm only on first episode on Netflix. And honey, I got to rocking and moaning because the story is so gripping. I was like, woo wee, and all of us to have children and teenagers and stuff. Watch it. You see what I'm saying? And honey, I got to. And my kids joke, I'm like that lady off that movie that was praying in her, turned her closet into a prayer closet. Y'all know that little Christian movie with the older woman. She had that white gray wig. Kids was like, Mama, that's you. I'm like, what? I'm not an old woman. But the way that I pray, and we'll get to that when we get to the prophecy versus prediction, because most people don't know. I know my gifting is a prophetic intercessor. But you don't see me going around really saying that. I may have said that a handful of times throughout my Hebraic awakening page. If you have ever heard me say it, let me know in the comments. All right, I've heard you say it, but if you have never heard me say it, tell me that too, because I want to know. Because most prophets don't go around, or people who are prophetic really don't do that. Ezekiel 22. What did I say? Menopause brain, child. Menopause brain. Y'all getting all options. What did I say? Oh, 31. Told you I ain't editing. It's raw. Okay. Get what you get. I done stopped the thing 2 times. They outside acting a fuck. No. I'm not about to edit all that out. I'm gonna do just a smidget where y'all don't see me get up from the chair and walk. I'm gonna edit that little part out, but all that other, I'm not. All right. Um. Therefore have I poured out my indignation upon them. I have consumed them with fire of my wrath. Their own way I have recompensed upon their heads, says Yahweh, our Elohim. So this is what happens when there's no intercessor. So read the whole thing because I'm looking up through it. And I'm like, yeah, this is another heavy one, like Isaiah. This is another heavy one. So read it. Read all of Ezekiel 23. See what happens. See what happens. And that's why I said, do we really have intercessors? And I'm talking about as a nation. I know some of us, but as a nation, because look at our communities. Just food for thought. That put me in there too. Food for thought. But because we are not yet a nation again, he has not gathered us together and people kind of recognized all of the 12 tribes. It is what it is. It is what it is. All right. What else was I gonna say? Um, well, we did the territories. Let's talk about lightning. And did I did I do no? So we're just gonna talk about the lightning that Yahweh uses, right? To direct prayer and lightning and the thunder. How Pagah is used as a metaphor for lightning and light, and how the Most High will command the light to strike or not to strike. And this reference to Pagah, right, to strike, to make contact, used as a metaphor for lightning. So let's look at it. And what does lightning really represent? I wrote it down 36, Job. Man, every time I read Job, I was like, man, Job was getting that work. Like, dang. And he was a righteous man. And the Most High went in on him. Good grief. So what is he doing to us? That's why I be like, y'all ain't hearing from the Most High. Because if he do Job like that, and he drug Job through the mud, then what he doing to you and me? That's why I be like, I don't know who people be talking about. But you ain't heard nothing from the Most High. Behold, I'm at verse 30. He spread his light upon it and covereth the bottom of the sea. For, for by them judges he the people, he giveth meat in abundance. This ain't it. Oh, yeah, yes, it is. With clouds he covered the light and commanded not to shine by the cloud that come betwixt. Now, they jacked this up so bad. I was like, what kind of translation? So let's just click on the words, okay? This is why you need software or something to help you to understand the Hebrew. Let's click on clouds. Cough. Ooh, the Hebrew word cough. What? The hollow hand on a palm. Work. Power. See that? Power. Your foot, your hand, hollow, the palm, right? Let's see. What's the root? Like a bow or bow down. Self to curve, right? Power, right? So with his power or his hands, he cover to fill up the hollows, to cover for clothing or secrecy, right? To conceal, to hide. Let's compare kasa, to grow fat, right? So let's go back. So with his hands or his power, he conceals or hide, in this instance, the light. Illumination, or we already know, or anytime we see lights in this Hebrew word, or is to make something to not just to uh like to make something to be seen like a sun or something, but it's to light up, to make luminous, to show you something, which is really his commandments. Not like a physical light, but like this illumination that lights up and makes something known. So he uses his hands or his power and he conceals the knowledge or the light. He gonna conceal it and he commands it not to strike. He commands to appoint, to give charge, commands, send a message, to set in order. He commands that this light is not gonna set anything in order that come, I hate that word betwixt, paga. Ooh. Ooh, paga. Right? Calls to entreat, to fall upon, intercession. So he's not going to let the power of his hands, he's going to conceal this light or this knowledge and command it not to paga, not to make contact, not to strike. Do y'all see where I'm going with this? And there's so many other instances that we see um, this word being used. Is it Job 37 too? So he directs. So let's start at one. At this also my heart trembles and is moved out of his place. Hear attentively the noise of his voice and the sound that goes out of his mouth. He directs it under the whole heaven and his lightning until the ends of the earth. Right? So, I'm like, ooh wee, ooh wee. And the nerd in me, I'm like, okay, so he is using metaphors, right? To teach us something about his words, how his words strike, his knowledge strike, and is striking the earth. After, verse 4, after it a voice roars, he thunders with the voice of his excellency, like as in thunder. And he will not stay them when his voice is heard. Let's see what he will not stay them. Properly to swell out, up, used as a denominative from a camp to seize, to circumvent, as if tripping up the hills. Also to restrain, as if holding the heel. Right? So he's not going to restrain. He's not going to restrain when his voice is heard. He's not going to restrain anything. God or Elohim thundereth marvelously with his voice. Great things do he which we cannot comprehend. So this lightning, these are metaphors, and if you study the word lightning throughout the Bible, you're going to walk away with what I'm saying. Lightning, thunder, they are metaphors for his voice and his words lighting up the earth, bringing knowledge and revelation into the earth. And so I'm like, man, I looked at up lightning. How many times do lightning strike the earth? And then we know light travels faster than sound. So his lightning or his light, his ore, his knowledge, his wisdom, this light that comes from him travels faster than his voice. Woo wee. And that lightning, boom, it strikes. And then you hear the thunder. So his words, his knowledge, his understanding is striking the earth. And then you hear the sound of his voice. I say, ooh wee, right? Lightning travels 1 million times faster than sounds. Guess what? Lightning strikes this earth 8 million times a day. I said, there is no, like he said, there is no excuse for you not to know who I am. There's no excuse. I'm striking the earth 8 million times a day. And you going to say, you don't know that there is no Elohim. There is no Elohim, huh? And he's striking the earth 8 million times a day. And nobody can control it. But we say, where is your Elohim? All right. So we in Psalms 104, verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be removed forever? You're not finna move the foundations of the earth. Who finna do it? I know I'm using bad grammar. I do that on purpose. Thou cover it with the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. At your rebuke, you see, the water's not supposed to be standing above the mountains. Then he said, at your rebuke, this light, they fled. A chiding, a reproof. Who told you to stand above the mountains? This is how we know that something had happened for the earth to be without form. And I'm going to talk about that in another little short. Like, who, what? Ooh, at thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of your thunder, they hasted away. Right? And so this is just reminding us about the voice of Elohim and when he speaks and what that mark, that violence that happens, that rebuke that happens when he speaks. And that's the same type of paga that we have to have when we are interceding, when we want to go outside of the limits that we have to reach and make that mark, we have to paga in our prayer. We got to be like Abraham. Wait a minute, I'm going to stay here all day. And Abraham went down and down and down. And guess what? The Most High let him. He didn't rebuke him. He let him paga. So that is intercession. And we all know the famous paga of all times. Exodus 19:16 through 19. Before Yahweh came down to talk to the people, what was happening. There was lightning and thunder. And then he what? Began to speak. So his light hit the earth. Boom. Knowledge, he's going to light it up, or he's going to bring illumination to everybody's mind so they can draw out and receive what he's about to say. And then he spoke. And they couldn't take it. All of that going on, all that lightning and thunder. No, we can't. We're not ready for it. So this paga to strike is always going to go past the limits. And you have to violently pray. And how you violently pray don't mean that you punch in the air. I mean, you could, but it doesn't mean that you violently punch in the air and doing all type of crazy stuff to show that you are violently praying. But it means that you are not just talking at this point. And for me, I know when I have moved past prayer into intercession, it's a totally different take. I am very authoritative, right? I am coming in with nothing but word. I am asking him to remember. I am saying, do you remember what you said? Explain it to me if I have misunderstand, but according to your word, like paga. And you will know when you have entered in from prayer and talking, and pleading to boom, striking. Like you like, get out my way, everything and everybody. I got to make direct contact. I need for my boundaries to get out of my way for a minute. And I need to talk. And not just talk, but this is like, I need for something to happen now. And I remember I paga for my oldest son, um, who struggles with drug addiction. And he was first, out on the streets and he didn't come home. And I'm like, what in the world? And I got them prayer warriors together. And when I sat before him, I said, that day, I said, I'm not getting up until I get an answer. And I meant that with all of my heart, with all of my soul, and with all of my resources. And you know how mothers are. I meant that too. And he knew I meant it. And I remember. And I sat there and I was praying. And I know some people don't agree with speaking in other languages, whatever. And I know that I do because I have spoken in another language and another person from a different nation heard me and was like, do you know what you were saying? And they began to tell me what I was saying. So I know that I have the gift of tongues and I have the gift of the heavenly language, And so I was praying and I remember the Puerto Rican sister stood up and she gave a prophetic word, honey, and it was on point. Because when she said what she said, I knew it was the Most High. And I went home and my son called me. And it wasn't that he was getting off the streets, he was letting me know he was okay. Paga, mama, bear, lion, paga. Somebody gonna tell me something. And when she said that, he also gave me a vision of how my son would be delivered. He didn't tell me a time frame that he would be delivered, but he gave me multiple visions to show me how the process was. It was going to be a process, and I really wasn't going to like it. And I saw the process, but I also saw him delivered. It's at the end of the process and sitting among the elders. He was sitting among the elders as young as he was, and he was sitting there and he was in his right mind. I said, okay. And I still get a little frustrated about the process because I'm like, how long is this going to take? But I forgot. I didn't sit there, well, I guess. And no, I needed an answer. And he not only answered me through the intercessor, but he answered me through visions. It was like, this child, no, I ain't playing. The most I know I'm not playing. I'm not, no, I'm not playing no games. Because I know what you did for me, and I know what you said in your word. So what's going on? And what's my mistake? And how can I handle things differently? However, your word said. Listen, I forgot. So that next teaching on prophecy versus prediction. Now, I'm not putting that on my regular YouTube. That is going to be on Patreon. So for my Patreon subscribers, I probably put, what is it called? A discussion. That ain't what I want to say. A questionnaire. That's not what I want to say. That's not what I want to say. A poll. I'm gonna put a poll at people, that want me to do that live with them, like on Zoom live where we could do it together, or do you want me to record it and you could listen to it, take notes, and put down your questions if you have any when we talk about prophecy versus prediction, right? Because that's gonna step on a lot of our toes. So this is why it's important for you to understand intercession and prayer. Because if you understand intercession and prayer, then who is you listening to? And why are you listening to them? I mean, I know we're going to listen to people, but I'm talking about listening. Like you intently listening to these people. And like, see, they said this. I'm telling you. I'm like, no, that's not, no, that's not how prophets roll. I'm trying to tell you. All right, y'all. I hope this video will help and edify you and cause you to study for yourself. Until the next video, shalom, y'all.